Hey, what's going on? My name is Harrison, and this is going to be an Unreal Engine 4 C++ tutorial on how to create a pawn and how to move that pawn. This is going to be a direct copy of the documentation's player input and pawns tutorial. Yeah, so if you're having problems with it, or if you just want a refresher, or you know, if the engine's updated and maybe it doesn't work on the old one or something. So regardless, let's go ahead and recreate it on our own and see what happens. Let's get out of that. So again, there should be a GitHub link in the description below where you can immediately grab the code and move on. But if not, let's continue with the video. First, let's go ahead and create some action and access inputs. So edit project settings, go down to input. Under action mappings and access mappings, let's go ahead and under action mappings, let's create an action called grow. In this tutorial, the mesh grows in size. And then under keys, we're gonna set it to G. That was simple enough. Under axis mappings, let's go ahead and create two more axes just for fun. You can probably use move forward and move right and turn, but for this one, let's go ahead and just for practice, let's create a new one called move X. And we're gonna set that to I and K. Again, I don't want to use WASD. Again, I'm doing I, K, J, and L just for practice. What's this one? This one's going to be set to 1. Then we're going to add one more, and then it's going to be K. And we'll set that to -1. And now we're going to do the same thing for move Y. One more. Press the plus sign by axis mapping, move Y. For this one, I want to do J and L, I believe. Yeah, let's do J and L. Keyboard J and keyboard L. No, not the mouse. And it's going to be -1 up top and then 1 for L. Alright, that should be it for the input settings. It should save automatically. Let's close out of that. Let's go ahead and create a new C++ class. Right click, new class. This time let's choose pawn. Let's call it my pawn and create the class. Alright, the engine just created the files for us. Let's go ahead and set up our header file. U property edit anywhere. It's going to be a uScene component. We're going to call it our visible actor. Now let's set up our input functions. Void move x-axis, float axis value, void move y-axis, float axis value, void start growing, void stop growing, f vector current velocity, and last is bool be growing. Check to see if the action's running. Alright, save that. That should be it for the header file. Let's jump into the CPP file. The first thing we want to do is add in the components that we'll be using for this class. First we'll want to do include camera / camera component .h hashtag include components input component .h hashtag include components static mesh component .h. Alright, that should be it for the include files. Let's go into our constructor function and set up this pawn. So immediately, when by default, we want to possess this new pawn that we drop into the world. Auto possess player equals e auto possess, where is it? Auto receive input player 0. That's what our current C++ player is set up as. Again, I'm using the provided first-person C++ template provided by Epic and the Unreal Engine. Root component. Next, root component equals create default subobject. Use scene component, and we're going to call it root component. Root comp. Camera component is going to equal create default subobject. Where's it? That's going to be a camera component. A U camera component, yeah, that's what I thought. U camera component, text. We'll call it our camera. Our visible component. Our visible component equals create default subobject. Use static mesh component. End it with some text. Let's call it our mesh. Now let's set up more with our camera. Our camera arrow operator. Set up attachment. We're going to set it to the root component. Set it up to the root component. Next, with our camera, we want to set the relative location. So we're going to position it behind the mesh. It'll be an F. It'll accept an F vector. To push it there, it'll be negative 250, 0, and 250. So back 250 and up 250 of Unreal units. Our camera, arrow operator, set relative rotation. It'll accept a F rotator. Did I spell that right? Yeah, F rotator. It'll be negative 45 degrees, so it's pointing down at the mesh. The rest will be 0. Our visible component. I think I misspelled this our camera. It's a capital O. Next, for our visible component. Our visible component is going to be setup attachment. That's going to be to the root component as well. I think that's good for the constructor. I want to check one thing in the header file. I want to know if I messed up anything. So right here, I have it called our visible actor. I want to change that to component. I think that was a mistake I made early on. Let me just double check that. Yeah, so it should be called our visible component. So now it matches up with our constructor function. That should be it for the constructor. Let's move along. Let's jump into the tick function. So every frame, what do you want to have happen? Okay. Brackets. Float current scale equals our visible component. Arrow operator, get component scale. Times x, or get the x component of it. If b growing is true, which we will toggle in one of our functions later on. If b growing is true, current scale plus equals delta time. If b growing is false, current scale plus, is it minus? Yeah, it's minus equals delta scale, or delta time, times 0.5 units. So we don't want to decrease the scale of our visible component to nothing, so we will clamp these variables, or we will clamp current scale equals fmath clamp. We want to clamp current scale, so it's never less than 1 or greater than 2. Our visible component, arrow operator, set world scale 3D. It's going to accept an f vector, and the f vector is going to have the coordinates of the current scale. That should be it for the tick function. Now let's go ahead and move into our player input function and set up our inputs. So input component, arrow operator, input component, bind action. We're going to bind it to our grow button, which we bound to G. So on pressed, this reference our actor, which is called a my pawn, and run the grow function, start growing, and we'll make that in just a second. I'm going to copy and paste it, and we'll do the same thing for when it's released. When you release this button, RE, we want to run the stop growing function. Alright, so that should be it for our actions, but now let's go on to our axis movements. Input component, bind axis, move X, this reference my pawn, colon, move X axis, and we'll create that function in a second. We're going to do the same thing for Y. I'm going to copy and paste it, bind axis, move Y, and we're going to do move Y axis. So now let's create those 3 functions. It's going to be start growing, stop growing. Oh, it'll be 4 functions: stop, start, move, and move again. Okay. Avoid a my pawn, colon, start growing. It's just going to toggle a bool. B growing equals true. I'm going to copy and paste it and do the same thing for stop growing, but except have it equal to false. Stop growing, B growing equals false. Okay, now let's do our axis functions. Avoid a my axis, no, my pawn, move x axis. It accepts a float. So it's going to be float angle axis, I believe. Float axis value. And it's going to be current velocity x. And that's going to equal math clamp axis value. We want to clamp that so it's between -1 and 1. And we're going to multiply it by 100. Okay, that should be it for the x-axis. Now let's do the same thing for the y-axis. I'm going to copy and paste it. My pawn, move y-axis instead of x-axis. Current velocity y rather than x, and that should be it, I think. Let's see if it works. Let's drag and drop it into the editor. Or first, let's compile, see if I have any errors, and then we'll proceed. Alright, the compile failed. Let's check it out. Oh man, I got so many fucking errors. Line by line. 19. What's up with 19? What was I thinking? It's U camera component pointer our camera. That's gonna probably fix a lot of errors. Let's just go ahead and recompile so I have a smaller list. Set world scale 3D is not a member of UC component. My pawn is not a class or namespace. Let's do the set world member. Okay, in set world scale 3D, the D has to be capitalized. Where am I? That's in growing, right? No, C declaration, C component. So my pawn, where's my pawn? Line 69. Oh, there we go. Yeah, you have to put the A in front of the class name. Let's recompile, see if I can lessen the list again. Alright, sweet. The compile was successful. Let's go ahead and drag and drop it into the game world. Grab my pawn. You can see that the camera is already there. Let's go ahead and add a visual representation. So, where do we do that? Grab the camera. Our visual component should be up top, or it should be a sub one. Where's static mesh at? So the static mesh should be around the top. Let's go ahead and add something in. Let's just go cube and push play. So we can grow just fine. G works, but my input is not working. Let's figure that out. Move x-axis, y-axis. I don't think in tick, I think I have to add the current velocity somewhere. Yeah, I forgot a whole function in the tick function. All right, whole logic component. So go back down into your tick function, and let's go ahead and do it up. If current velocity dot is 0, f vector new location equals get actor location plus current velocity times delta time. Now we set the actor location to the new location. Let's hope that works. Compile. The compile was successful. Let's see if it works. Push play. Okay. And we're moving around the game world. That's kind of cool. And if we push G, we will grow and stop at the scale of 2. When we release, it'll go down to the scale of 1. So that's kind of cool. That's it for this tutorial. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.